With Kamala Harris as the new VP under Joe Biden, will this catapult Biden to an easy win, or will the Trump train roll through the station? Join us today as we talk through our August election prediction map. Yeah. Hey guys, welcome back to the Mr. R Show. As always, I am Andy.
I'm Ashton.
And today we are going through our August election prediction map. It's crazy to think that it is already August, Ashton. This year has flown by, especially with, everything that's going on with the disease. So it is just insane to think that November is so close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this year has been a long century, so it feels like time is going very quick and very slow. It's very weird. It almost reminds me of whenever I went to basic training. For everyone who doesn't know, I'm in the Air National Guard, and not trying to bring that into politics. I'm just saying when you go to basic training, it's like every day takes forever, but at the end of it, you're like, wow, it's like time is in its own like different little capsule when you're going through that amount of stress and stuff like that. And I feel like this year is somewhat similar almost. So it's a very interesting thing to see. Yeah, Kamala Harris got picked, and we go watch that video. Shameless plug if you haven't. Just our comments. I mean, not a bad pick, not a good pick, and at least in both of our eyes, it's safe.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Andy, let's go ahead and pull up your map and kind of go over this.
Disclaimer before I show my map. As we've done in all the previous maps before, this is today, how the election would shape out if it was held today as of, August 14th. This would be for us as just watching this. So it's not what's going to happen in November. We still got a couple more months to go, but this is what will happen today. Without further ado, here is my map. So here is my map, guys. Before Ashton, you react real quick, just want to show you, compared to last month, it is a little bit closer now. I gave Trump a little bit of an addition in some places. You can see, and you can say which state that is, but North Carolina I gave back to Trump. That is a very, for me, 50-50 flippity-flop state as of right now. I think even though we're still in the midst of this COVID pandemic, Trump is not, I wouldn't say gaining tons of momentum, but he's gaining a little bit. It's still not enough yet. You can see I have Biden at 337 and Trump at 201, but still Trump has increased in this month's map compared to my last month's map. Ashton, what are your thoughts?
I feel like this is a very, let's say, conservative, no pun intended, map on just, I would say you kind of have, I'm guessing, you have a lot of the undecided voters breaking kind of for the president and not for the challenger in most swing states. And I think it's interesting you had North Carolina and Iowa and Georgia and Texas going to Trump, but not Wisconsin. I feel like almost if he won those four, he would probably theoretically edge out in Wisconsin. Um, I don't know that. That's just my feeling. North Carolina, I agree. I don't necessarily agree it's a 50-50 state. I think it's a very close state. Not as much as like a Georgia or Texas. I think it's like an opposite ends on competitiveness, where I think where Trump has somewhat of advantage in Texas and Georgia, I feel like Biden somewhat has an advantage in North Carolina, but we can get into that on my map.
Yeah, I can agree with you. Where I still think Biden overall does have some advantages in North Carolina, but as of right now, I just think Trump has a very slight lead there. And I know you commented about how you think it's strange if I have the three: North Carolina, Iowa, and Texas. Trump, why I don't have Wisconsin? But you look at the polls, and I'll put them on the screen right now. But Biden is up 5.5 on the RCP average in Wisconsin. That's why I had him in winning Wisconsin.
Hmm.
But a lot can change, like I said. But as of right now, I'm at 337 Biden, 201 Trump.
Yeah, I think it's clear for us to also underscore to our viewers, especially in the RCP polling in general, there has been a narrowing. And that's something that I personally did not think would happen at this point in time. I know a lot of people were saying it, but I was like, well, I don't necessarily think with the pandemic and everything going on, polls would start to narrow. You have seen that. It's been, I would say, maybe a point or two drop for Biden. Now, we don't know if the conventions are going to have the natural bump they typically do. We just don't know, given with how the conventions do. Like, there's a scenario where neither convention has a bump. Uh, there's a scenario where maybe the better convention only has a bump because the Democratic one is a little bit more prepared to be virtual, and the Republican one is kind of just like thrown together. So it's we don't know what's going to happen because we've never been in this type of environment before in election season. So it's going to be kind of interesting, especially looking back for future elections. Like, how does the polling respond to the conventions, and how does the polling respond to the VP announcement? Because the Biden campaign came out and said they raised a whole boatload of money from just 2 days of Kamala Harris being picked on. That doesn't mean she's a good pick. Doesn't mean they're gonna win. That just means she's really good at getting, like, I think they got 150,000 first time donators, so it's a good sign,
Yeah.
not a bad one.
But Ashton, as you can see, my math, like I said, just kind of narrows a little bit for Trump. Still a healthy margin for Biden, nonetheless. But Ashton, I think it's time for you to show your map. Okay, Ashton, I can see from your last month's map, it's a little bit narrow for Trump. Still very, very a blowout in your eyes, 406 to 132.
Hmm.
Similar in some states. You have a healthier margin of victory in Florida. You, of course, have North Carolina going to Biden, and the biggest one of all, Texas.
Hmm.
Ashton, your thoughts on the map before I ask some questions?
Uh, I mean, not much. I think on this map, the hardest one for me to call was Wisconsin. That one to me is going to be such a nail biter if it were to happen today. North Carolina too. I would say the margin of victory for Biden in those two states. For North Carolina, I think he would win maybe by 200,000 votes. Wisconsin, maybe around 100,000. So, yeah, they're margins, but they're not too big. Ohio is also a hard call, but I'm a little bit more comfortable just because Ohio polling is way, way more, let's say, accurate than most other state polling because it's been a swing state forever, and it's easier to kind of pull for demographics there. So Ohio, even if it had the same margin of error as it did in 2016, Biden would win it at this point in time. So that's my comments.
Yeah, a question I have, if you look at your map, you have both Kansas and Indiana as, I think that's what, likely Trump, right? Not the darkest red, but the next to it. My question
Hmm.
is, out of those two states, which of them do you think Biden has a better chance of flipping, if at all possible?
Uh, Out of Kansas or Indiana, I definitely would say Indiana, just because Indiana has way more independent voters, and um, if there was like seven shades of colors, Indiana would be less red than like Kansas or Missouri. I still think Trump is going to end up winning those if they were held today. Like, this, people need to understand 1 point or 2 point differences in national average means the difference between Biden picking up a red state like Indiana and Missouri. And in my eyes, I'm trying to recalculate for that. I didn't think he would start going, or Trump would start regaining his foothold a little bit. Not regaining his foothold, but I didn't think he would start rising in the polls again. and he did. So I'm taking that into account. I'm saying he's going to win some really red states. I would point out South Carolina and Alaska are pink. I do think Biden still has a legitimate chance at winning either of them in a surprise upset. So it's long race ahead, 80 days or 80 plus days, and we'll see who wins it.
Yeah, you look at Florida. It feels like each video we do, July, June. Now we're in August. Your Florida lead for Biden keeps on growing. What is, in your eyes, the cause of Biden's increasing lead in Florida?
I mean, it's less about Biden and more about mistakes the Trump campaign has made. I mean, it's just to me so many times where the Latino outreach from Trump campaign hasn't been the best. I feel like African American turnout in Florida is going to be decently high this time compared to 2016, and Trump only won it by a percentage point, and he was never down by 5 or 6 points in Florida in any of the polling in 2016. In 2020, he's down by way more. So, I don't expect Florida to be as people expect, and if Joe Biden does win it on election night, which I think we'll probably put out a video talking about scenarios for election night, whether it will end on election night or not. And there's a good chance it won't, because if you don't know, California does all mail-in ballots, and typically it takes a few weeks for them to get that all counted and taken care of. If we're doing that for nationwide, you could possibly see things like Texas and big states take a lot longer than normal. So I do think if Joe Biden wins it on election night, like you'll have a lot of states grayed out and not being like still counting and stuff like that. But I think Florida could be the one to put it over with Biden leading by 4 or 5%,
All right,
like
Ash.
at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, but we'll definitely see how that turns out. As it's going to be a historic presidency and historic election. Of course, with the way mail-in balloting is happening and the virus, it's going to be historic nonetheless.
Hmm.
But Ashton, you have again 402 for Biden and 132 for Trump. So healthy margin for Biden. Biden more than me, but that's okay. We have different opinions, and that is fine. We'll see how it goes. Thank you guys for watching. This wraps up our election map prediction for August. Come back next Friday, as I think we're doing another one of our state profiles. That will be interesting to see. Go check out our other videos, like our reaction to Kamala Harris, majority versus plurality. That's a good one. Go check out some of the other ones. And stay safe out there. Wear your masks. And we'll see you in the next video.